Welcome back, my friends, to the final episode of Is It Forceable? For Set 8. If you want to jump straight to the meat of this, go to the chapter heading below. I got some other stuff I wanted to cover before then. So this channel has now passed 1,000 subscribers, which is absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, commenting, and doing all that stuff. So when I started posting videos on this channel, I got people who asked me, hey, why aren't you posting on the old channel? And I said there was kind of a story behind it. It's nothing nefarious or weird. It's not a giant tea spill or anything like that. But I said that if I got to 1,000 subscribers and people were interested, I would tell the story. So my question to you is, are you interested? If you are, leave a comment below. If, say, 10 of you actually want to hear the story, then I'll make a video for it. But believe me, it isn't really that exciting. Lives are not going to change. In fact, nothing will change. I'll just still be posting on this channel. Now let me talk a little bit about this build. I've been doing my thing. It's the time of the season where I want to get my main into gold, and so I've been doing ranked games, and I actually ended up falling back to this build a lot for ranked games. It's a combination of threats and recon, but there's a specific way to make it for hyperroll that I am going to show you here, and then we're going to decide whether it's forceable. So with that in mind, let's look at these first set of augments. Remember, we're thinking threats and recon. So nothing here really fits. I could take the Tome of Traits and hope that I get a recon. None of that really worked, so we just go with the true twos and hope that this will make the team strong enough. The goal is going to be to get all 4 recons, or 3 recons and a recon heart, or something along those lines. Then Shogath and Rammus to make up the bulk of the front line. Now, in ranked, you can kind of stop at 7, because you just then get a Nyla, and you will click Duelist for Vayne, and so you have Cho, Rammus, Nyla, your 4 recons, and you're pretty strong. This is going to go to 9, so you want to fill in the entire team. So you're going with your 4 recons, then Cho and Rammus, then I bring in Sejuani and Mordekaiser, because that will give you an ace, it will give you Laser Core, it will give you Duelist along with Nyla and Vayne, and it seems to make the team really powerful. But can you force something like that? Well, we're about to find out. So the general warning I will give anyone considering anything like this is the game does not always want to cooperate. You want to get your 4 recons, Ashe, Ezreal, KaiSa, and Vayne, and you want Rammus and Cho, but sometimes you end up with stuff like this where it's just not there. Yeah, you got a Rammus and you got a Ashe, but no other recons are available at the moment. For augments, I really like healing augments, but I will also take something like Sunfire Board if I'm given a chance, and the reason is that this is a build that is going to try to take down the other team really fast. For items, I like to tank up the front line. Bramble Vest on Rammus is excellent since his damage will scale off his armor. Then you're either using KaiSa or Vayne as your carry. I used to not like Rage Blade on KaiSa, but they flattened out her attack speed increase a lot more, and so I find it pretty effective now. Hero augments, as always, can be make or break, especially if they come early. Later, you're more likely to get something like this that's going to fit your build. In this case, I ended up going with the Armadillo because my backline was already fairly strong, and I felt that the front line needed the most help. I didn't yet have a 2-star Rammus. This gave me that little extra buff in the front line that I needed and allowed my backline to just do the damage they needed. I ended up putting Thieves' Gloves on Cho as kind of a last option, but notice I brought in Nyla. That is going to be speeding up Vayne. I'm also grabbed a Sejuani for that amazing stun, and I'm going to look for a Mordekaiser later on. Here you can see the entire team assembled. This one came down to a 1v1 against a Laser Core team that happened to have a 3-star Zoe hanging out in the corner, so they were able to make Zed a hacker as well. I knew this was going to be very difficult. I moved Rammus into Zed's place in the hope of taunting Zed away, but with the 3-star Zoe also on their team, I know that my team is pretty squishy in the backline, and without them, it kind of goes down quickly. You can see here that while it was effective in taking me into the top 4, The victory wasn't quite there, just a little too much power coming from their side, and they're able to finish me off, but it's GG, and we start with a very respectable second place. For game number 2, let me talk about the carousel a little bit. When I'm trying to force this, I try to go for Ash unless she has an item that is impossible to use in any way, such as something like a giant's belt. But pretty much anything else I can work in some way, so I want to get my first recon early, so I'm good to go at least on that front. As I mentioned, for augments, I'm hoping for healing augments, so if I see Thrill of the Hunt, I'm likely to take it unless I get a Celestial Blessing that's a high enough count. But the burst healing from Thrill of the Hunt will keep you in a little longer than you expected. As always, hero augments can be make or break. I'm not a huge fan of Into the Night simply because it restricts you to one item, so I roll it, hoping to get something else. Luckily, those 4 rolls do not eat up any of your other rolls. I get the KaiSa augment, and so I'm going to go ahead and take that. As I mentioned, I like Rage Blade on her now, and I also like adding in a Hextech Gunblade, so you have a little additional healing. For your front line, since you're not necessarily going to start off with threats, I tended to start the games either with brawlers or defenders, depending on which I was getting. Just something to kind of hold the front in place while I build up the back line. Here you can see I'm really planning on KaiSa being the carry, even though she's only 1 star. But notice how much damage she's doing and how well she's holding up. I like these 3 items. You can replace the Spear of Sojin with a Giant Slayer if you want, but I find Rage Blade and Hextech Gunblade to be absolutely key. Final augment of game number 2, I decide to go ahead and grab the Phony Frontline. Anything to help shore up that front line is going to be fairly good for you. This second match got a little crazy. As you can see, I'm not holding on all too well. I'm 2 KaiSas away from gold, but I'm against another one of these laser hacker teams, and I didn't know if I'd be able to hold on. I did the Laser Corp build the last time. I didn't necessarily include hacker as one of the main traits. I didn't find it as strong, but this one seemed to be doing pretty well. But note how strong KaiSa can be even when it's 3v1. She's able to heal herself just enough and keep me in the match. Game 2 also ended up in that 1v1 situation against the exact same type of team, the one from earlier, only this one didn't have a 3-star Zoe in the back to really hold it up, and I had a Laser Core somewhat base of my own with Mordekaiser, Sejuani, and Ashe. I also got the 3-star KaiSa, which really sealed the deal and allowed Game 2 to be a first place. Now, I had been running into this build a lot in ranked. I didn't know if it was going to translate over to hyper, but so far so good. The hardest part I find is really the start. The augments aren't always friendly. Nothing here is going to fit reroll. They're prismatic. Ugh. What I decide to do here is go ahead and grab an ace crown. Now, that's going to allow me to make one of my recons an ace, but it means my final champion will not be Mordekaiser because, well, then that would just minus out the entire ace effect. But I need to start off with something strong enough, so we're going to go brawlers in front as I try to get my 2-star Ashe. And if you've played ranked, no doubt you have run into this build. I've actually used it a lot and had many matches where it was 3 recon threat type teams all in the top 3 because it just exists a lot out there, but it's a lot easier to build there because you can craft your team a little easier than in hyperroll. It's time for our next augment, and it is a hero augment, and it still scares me a little bit because it was giving me a Jax which didn't fit my team at all, nor did the Vel'Koz, and I was afraid if I rolled I might not get anything else that would ultimately fit, so I went ahead and grabbed the KaiSa. Now in this case, the goal was then to increase KaiSa's attack speed as much as possible, and I then want to turn Vayne into the ace since Vayne has more power. So I'm going to give Vayne the ace emblem, KaiSa the Rage Blade, and then allow her attack speed to transfer over to Vayne. You can see by my position, this game was going pretty rough and these augments are not helping. I'd really like a healing one, but cybernetic shell is about the only choice I have, so I can hopefully beef up the front line and maybe squeak into the top 4. My goal in this match is to keep Vayne next to KaiSa as much as possible, so you can see they are together on the screen. The point is, KaiSa is going to pass over her attack speed buff over to Vayne. Vayne is the ace with a Runin's Hurricane and also a Last Whisper, so shredding armor and potentially executing when they get down below 15%. This has managed to allow me to hold on and make it, after winning this fight, into the top 4. A good chance of winning this one, but the phone rang at just the wrong moment, and you're going to see right here where I only have a few seconds left. I meant to move Vayne and KaiSa over, but did not have time. This leaves Vayne right in the path of a hacker LeBlanc, and not next to KaiSa where I needed her. This real-life distractions are going to happen, and they're going to get in the way every now and then. It frustrated me that it happened in the middle of my doing a force build, and I debated whether to leave this game in the group at all, but since I did still finish top 4, I figured it was fair. It all came out in 3rd place, which is a pretty respectable finish, but I could have done better if I had just paid attention. And sometimes the game just hands you exactly what you want. Opening round, there is our Rammus, there is our Cho, so I'm feeling really good about this particular match to start off with. Now, it gives me a really interesting choice. I can start with a Duelist crest, which means I don't need to get Nyla later in the match because I can turn one of my Recons into the second Duelist, and that will give me more opportunity to beef up the front line. By Augment 2, we're running in the middle of the pack, and it's time to see another hero augment. Now, this one really scares me because it's a 2 cost, which means really Ezreal is going to be my only choice. This is probably the best one because one of my champions will be able to get an artifact. I'm going to make that Vayne as soon as I can get her in. So I will put Ezreal next to Vayne so that Vayne is getting the artifact. Then I'm going to be looking for KaiSa so she can end up getting the Duelist and the Rage Blade from Ashe. Now the key here is that I will not need Nyla in the ultimate build. I would use her before to tick the Duelist trait. Now I have it on KaiSa, and the faster KaiSa's attacking, the faster she's going to be casting, the faster she's going to be healing. As you can see, she's helping to keep the team alive, and even against a similarly situated team, we're able to win. And we are now on fire as we head into the final augment. Easy choice, Celestial Blessing. If I can get healing on this team comp, I'm going to go for it. My other goal is to beef up Vayne as much as possible, but only with 2 items because Ezreal is going to be providing the 3rd item in the form of an artifact at the start of every combat. This game came down to a 1v1 against a really strong Heart Aegis-based team. You can see the 3-star gold Sona just sitting in the corner pouring out damage. The 2-star Soraka with a Spear of Sojin similarly pouring out damage, and them cross-healing each other. I had a lot of power, but not enough to overcome something like that. My front line was strong, but not that strong, and it relied a lot on Rammus, which was physical damage, so we go down respectable 2nd place. GG to all. For our final game, I want to jump back to the carousel for a moment. Remember I said I always look for an Ashe unless there is an unusable item. Yeah, that Giant's Belt is not going to do me any good, so in that case, I will grab a bow, which is probably one of the most useful items that you're going to have in this entire set. Now to start off, the game's being pretty mean. It hasn't given me any recons or any threats, but it did give me a Thrill of the Hunt 550, which is definitely something I'm looking for. I just need to get the proper front line and my recons in place in order to make this all work. This game was definitely a struggle. As you can see, I've won 1 of the matches so far, and then it's time for hero augments, and I really do hope we see the back of hero augments soon and they don't come back again, because here I get trapped. It's going to be a 2 cost. The only one that's going to work for me is going to be Ezreal. I don't want the Ezreal carry one because that is just not going to be optimal, so I go with the Ezreal support augment, which will give me an artifact again. So I'll put Ezreal next to Vayne and hope that Vayne is able to get a pretty good artifact out of it. Go ahead, put a Deathblade on so Vayne's power is increased, and hopefully the artifact will help Vayne to actually be a carry. And as you will see, it does immediately help as Vayne is able to do a lot more damage with the armor shredding as well as the Deathblade. And while I was initially excited for hero augments at the beginning of this set, I've found them to be a little bit more of a deterrent to playing than what I originally expected. As we're heading into the third augment, I am now on fire and doing really well in this match. Portable Forge is usually a pretty quick choice for me because that can give me lots of options, and with Ezreal already dropping an artifact, it gives me a lot of opportunities. I decide to go with Randian Sanctum so I can tank up the front line even more than they already are. I have the Bramble Vest on Rammus, so he's going to be doing a lot of damage. This way I can surround him with my other frontliners and really make him strong. And this one was touch and go for a while, but I really thought I had it under control when I got the gold Rammus with 2 Bramble Vests and of course the Randian Sanctum on him, and my backline was just able to decimate things. You can see they're barely doing any damage to Rammus, and very soon it's a 1v1 situation for the win. Only one itsy bitsy little problem going on here, even as I get the gold 3-star Ashe. That's an Animaniacs team that I'm against, and unfortunately I have to clump the middle of my team together. So I move everyone around just so that I can get the best possible attack out of Vayne and hopefully maybe take Misfortune down before she's able to clean house on the entire team. My Mordekaiser gets their shot off, but Misfortune is just a little bit too strong. I think I have a good chance, but nope, not really, not against Animaniacs, and it's GG for everyone, and second place for Game 5. So let's go ahead, look at the scoreboard. I call the build Recon Threats because, well, that's what they are, and Game 1 was a pretty respectable second place. For Game 2, found our stride and got first place. Game 3, yeah, I wish I had paid better attention, but it ended up in third place. Game 4, we were at second place, and Game 5 again at second place. So to figure out the force score, we just simply add up our position, which is 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2 divided by the number of games we played, which was 5, and gives us a force score of 2.0. Full disclosure, I did actually play 2 other games in the middle, but I had to get up and walk away from the computer during them and wasn't able to finish the build, so I didn't think it was fair to include those at all. So I kept the 5 that I spent the most time on, even though, again, in Game 3, I kind of got distracted and didn't finish it off. This will probably be my last video of set 8.0. I'm going to flip over to the PBE as soon as 8.5 comes out, and then hopefully release a video on the day that 8.5 comes out with whatever the best new builds are for hyperroll for 8.5. If something crazy comes up along the way, I may put that up, but I don't expect to, as I'm really focusing more on just getting my main up into gold and then switching over to the PBE when 8.5 comes out and get to see what changes they make. Hope you enjoyed this video, hope you've enjoyed this whole series and everything else. Again, let me know in the comments below if you want to hear an explanation of Mission for Tuition and what happened and why I'm here instead of there. And as always, have an absolutely awesome day.